welcome back to another episode of If-Be-Your-Will podcast. I'm reaching over to Portland today. I have Pete Holmström from the Dandy Warhols and also Pete International Airport coming in to talk a little bit about his musical life, his musical journey. So thanks, Pete, for hopping on and sharing some of your journey with us.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. Thanks so much for taking me up on the invite. Shout out to Alex, who kind of connected us. Who helped you out a little bit with Pete International Airport's latest record.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've been really getting into that record, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But I like to kind of start off with kind of like your beginning history, like digging back into the past a little bit. And like I tend to ask, like, what was it that? When did you start realizing that music was going to be a heavy duty part of your life?
I mean, as far as playing, I don't know, my parents kind of encouraged us, me and my sister, to play instruments, but it was just a sort of fun thing. It wasn't serious in any way. Like, we weren't, violin prodigies or anything like that.
Right.
But there was some very basic music lessons. And at one point early on, my dad asked one of our neighbors, who was a guitar builder, to pick him out a guitar, just to learn how to play. And so that was the first time I ever played one. My dad learned to scale in a little classical piece and taught them to me. And yeah, that kind of started that.
What were your influences back then? Like when you were first starting, getting your first guitar, kind of tootling around on instruments. Like what was inspiring you to in your listening?
Well, there wasn't really anything. I was too young. It was just like I didn't know any music, other than what my parents played, and I don't even think I really knew that. It was I didn't know what it was. My dad. I remember my dad playing Dark Side of the Moon and being more fascinated with the room full of clocks than necessarily any of the songs or guitar playing or knowing what instrument was what. It wasn't, I mean, this is, back when I was, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there. And it wasn't until later that I started playing getting guitar lessons from a guy just down the street. And he taught me and a couple other kids like how to play Beach Boys songs for some reason. And I wasn't a Beach Boys fan, but that's what I learned.
Right.
and then in high school it became like sort of the post-punk kind of goth guitar stylings that I was interested in. So yeah.
Interesting. And in high school, I imagine that you were involved in playing with other people. Like were those your first experiences when you started kind of like jamming out with other people?
A little bit. I was kind of a late bloomer when it comes to the band thing. It wasn't. There was a couple kids I tried to play music with, and it just never really kind of took off in any way. We didn't have any one person that knew what they were doing, so we just fumbled around. Later on, Courtney actually called me up and said that he had some friends that he was helping out as a band. He was kind of almost sort of managing them, and they needed a guitar player, and he knew I had a guitar. So he kind of put me in my first band, which is kind of funny how things work out.
Right.
Because I didn't know him very well. He was playing music with a very good friend of mine. And I had known who he was because he was in cool bands around town.
Right.
But yeah, and that band didn't really do much, but it was definitely my first taste um, of playing music. First time
Right.
playing, in front of people as a guitar player.
Right. And did you know, Peter, like kind of the direction you like the sound you wanted from your guitar and pedals
Oh,
and like were you figuring that shit out as you were playing shows and like as you were playing with other musicians, or had you kind of worked through those beginning like, okay, I want this pedal and this, this is the kind of sound that I like to produce. Like, was that established yet, or did that all just
no,
flood
oh,
in? Okay.
absolutely not. So at that time, I didn't know. I didn't really know what pedals were. At one point, somebody had lent me a bunch of pedals, and I plugged them all in, and they all fed back like crazy because I think I just turned everything all the way up, and it was too much. So I just sort of unplugged everything and just played without a pedal and without any pedals. Um, it wasn't until after college that I discovered My Bloody Valentine, and then a friend's band played on my roof, my apartment building in New York, and the guitar player had a bunch of cool pedals, and I didn't understand what pedals really did, but I knew I wanted them, and I assumed that the sound that they made had something to do with My Bloody Valentine. Um, and so I started. That's when that whole process started. Um, and I think I went out and bought a Rat pedal. Because I don't know, somewhere I'd read that was a cool pedal. Yeah, and it just slowly everything like trickled in. It's like a phaser and flangers and delays.
Right,
Um,
right.
yeah.
When did you first start to like find that sound that you were going to then eventually play in the dandies, like in the Dandy Warhols? Where
I
did
found
it
it
come to you?
during.
Like,
Oh no! It all came while we were putting the dandies together.
okay,
Um,
okay,
I had a Rat pedal. I knew the Mudheading song, or the Mudheading record, Big Muffs
mm-hmm.
or Super Fuzz, Super Fuzz, Big Muff, Big Muff, Super Fuzz, whatever.
That one, yeah.
Now I'm confused. That one, yeah. So I knew about a Big Muff pedal, and I borrowed one at one point on, I think, while we were recording the first record,
Yeah.
and at that point, that's when I had to get one. When we were recording our demo tape, there was a small electro-harmonic small stone in the little, basement studio, and I played with that a little bit and knew I had to get one of those.
Right.
I think before that I had a flanger and the Rat pedal, and that was maybe it.
Right. And
And
what
it
was
just
the
slowly.
collab? Yeah,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh,
I
it
just
just
was
like.
curious about that collaboration between you and Courtney, like when you were first starting to write and record songs together. What was that dynamic like for the songwriting process? Like, who brought ideas in, and what were they? Were they lyrics? Were they lines of guitar? Were they like, how did that early stages of putting records together as the Dandy Warhols? How did that evolve? How were the players involved in
Well,
deciding?
Courtney is the songwriter, and
Okay.
he had been working on that for years and years and years, and finally with the Dandies, it was the first time he actually played guitar and sang, as opposed to played drums. Um,
Okay.
and he had, like, I had just moved back from New York, and he got kicked out of the band that he was playing drums in. I convinced him to teach me how to play some of his songs, and that's just where it started. I had no concept of what it took to write a song at all, or write music even. But so I was just playing with sounds, and that was my contribution in the beginning.
Did everybody kind of contribute in their own, like, was it open, or were the songs kind of already like, I kind of want this sound of the guitar, I'd like the bass to have this kind of drive to it, or was that really left to the players? So Courtney would bring in the songs, the lyrics, and then the band was able to add in what they felt the song needed?
At first it was like, like, it was so, kind of minimal as to what we were all doing. The way I remember it is that Courtney was playing jangly, more clean, trebly sounds, and I was playing sort of fuzzy mid-range stuff, and then the bass was doing, on the synth was just doing the low end, and we were all doing exactly the same thing. And the beat was very simple, and it was about making something for the harmonies to sit, the vocals and the harmonies to sit on top of. And it was just that was the basic concept. And once we got past the first record, it started to develop more, with more sound effects, different ideas, and
Right. I mean, the Dandy's catalog is pretty massive. I mean, there was a lot of there is continually. I mean, there's a new record just out. How have you found the sound has evolved over time? I mean, because your first release was, I mean, you guys formed in what, 94?
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel that the sound has evolved from those beginning to this record that's about to come out, or is out?
It's out, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry.
Well, I mean, the main thing is we all learned how to play our instruments. We've Courtney is getting help from the rest of us for songwriting. This most current record, I brought in, I think 6 of the 11 pieces of music that ended up on the record. And in the beginning, I think there's only there's one song, that wasn't just Courtney. So as that's one way it's evolved. Otherwise, we tend to stick pretty much to our original idea, which, it's like just enough chords to excuse a groove or something like that. It's a minimal approach where it's like there's no excessive, there's no excess, of song structure. It's kind of like just as much as you can get away with. I'm pushing that a little bit. I'm trying to get a little more complex, because that's what's interesting me at the moment. So a lot of the songs on the new record almost have 3 parts, not just 2. Whoa. Even if that third part is just a breakdown, it's
and is the process getting more enjoyable together? Like, as there's more contribution to what the sound of the Dandy Warhols will be, does that create more of a flow with the band? Like, things are easier to write, songs kind of just come out? Because you guys have always been self-produced. You write everything, you produce everything, you create studios out of empty buildings, right? To kind of get things started. Like, it's...
Well, I mean, that's what we did in the past. We've had our own studio now since 2004 or something, 2005, somewhere in there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And I have a little studio in my basement that I do a lot of stuff in. But I don't know if that anything's necessarily easier. I think it's about the same. It's always difficult. It's always more difficult than it should be, I think. Or maybe that's just part of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, fusing several artists' ideas into one it's a tricky process, I'm sure.
Sure. And with the Dandies, there is always, since Courtney is singing, he has to be able to believe what he's doing, you know.
Right.
So there is always a little bit of that, like his kind of final say on a lot of stuff,
Right.
which is ultimately why I went out and had other projects
Right.
so I could learn, you know, so I could make my own mistakes and learn, you know. It's like I had to go do that, and in order to be able to come back and you know, with this current record, like bring in a lot of music, and to be able to contribute in a much, you know, deeper way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, speaking of, I mean, they call it all these, you know, your side projects, but I mean, it's a pretty damn amazing side project, in my opinion. So, Pete International Airport, you have 3 records out.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find the collaborators? Because collaboration seems to be a huge part of what you do, with the Pete International Airport. What's that like? Like, how do you, like, you have a song in your head, or you have, you know, a beginnings of, how do you know to think, okay, I'm going to contact, or like, how does all that happen? Is it just happenstance, or is it thought out in your mind of who you would like to be there for that piece?
It's sometimes I know, and sometimes I get it very wrong.
Right.
But I tend to, it's almost that gut instinct thing where I like, if an idea pops in my head, I convince myself that it's what's supposed to be. And so I follow that. And so, you know, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. It's more often than not, it's right. So, and there's people I've come into contact with, or things I've, you know, seen that interest me, and people I want to work with. And so there's this list of names, some who I know, some who I don't, that I would like, you know, that it's always there. And if the song is kind of makes me feel like it needs that person, you know, then I will reach out.
That's cool. It's you have a black book of music where you can flip through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, everybody has access to everybody at the moment. So, right. Like on this current record, there's the song that Rachel from Slowdive sings on. It's like, I had seen on Instagram her posting my last record, you know, and saying that she liked it. I don't know how she got it, the record. I don't know how she found it. I had no idea she was aware of what I was doing, but I saw that. And so I just, like, mental, you know, note in my head. It's like, Rachel likes what I'm doing. That's very cool. And funnily enough, one of the songs on the new record was I was actually trying for a kind of slow divey sound. Right. Or there was some inspiration there. It doesn't sound like slow dive. And I didn't go to her with that song. It was a much different song. And and she did. She was wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, to me, I mean, I just find the record just flows so nicely. I mean, just one track after the next, it's like this sonic landscape you built. And it is so, I mean, I won't say dramatically different, but it is from the Dandy, you know, from previous work that you've worked on. It's really like, how do you describe this record to people when they're like, what, you got a side project? Like, what does this sound like? Like, how do you describe the work that you've done with Pete International Airport?
That's kind of my least favorite thing to answer, because it's so hard to put into words. But I kind of always go back to what my friend Jason Russo wrote for my kind of bio.
Yeah.
What is it's a meticulously crafted journey, psych rock journey into the dark heart of electronica. Um, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
read
what
that.
that
That's awesome.
means, but it
It sounds
works.
great. No, I think that's
uh,
awesome because
yeah,
it is
it's
like you got that deep like psych, but I love the electronic
yeah,
elements that you brought in. I mean, they just are the guts of it at
yeah.
times.
And if you knew the process, you would understand the meticulous part.
Well, that's what I wanted to get to because this record, well, I was talking to Alex who played on the record as well,
Yeah,
and he told me that it was all, well, his part he was saying was all online through like, the internets were,
yeah.
you know, that's like how you guys were communicating. How do you build a band record far away from each other?
Well, I mean, this is not a band by any means. I've had versions of a band to play live, but it's always me playing as much as I can and
Mhm.
reaching out to other people um, to do things that I can't, like play drums
Okay. Okay.
or piano or play piano well. Let's put it that way. Um,
Right.
so I have a few collaborators that I always like to work with. I would like them to play on more songs, but the three or
Mm.
four is is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then for I don't sing, so I reach out to different vocalists, and
Mm.
there's a group of people that now that I like to have. I would want on every single record I do, as long as
Mm.
as long as they still want to be a part of it. Um,
Right. Right.
and yeah, and Alex is now one of those. I had never met Alex.
Mhm.
I just yeah, that band Soons
Right.
posted one of Alex's songs, and I actually listened to it for some reason,
Mm.
and yeah, it blew me
It's
away.
pretty cool.
And
It's pretty
yeah,
cool. Yeah, is a new
reached it.
Paying Attack coming out soon,
Yeah,
which I'll be talking to him about, which will be really cool.
yeah, fantastic. I assume it's what I've heard, so I'm. It's exciting that it is coming out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So I wanted to also talk to you about. So you said at the start when the Dandies were going down, you were nowhere near the songwriting process. When did that
in the
process?
beginning, yeah.
Yeah, like when did that start for you? When you started writing songs or started to like, were you writing the instrumentation and the lyrics, and you just had other people singing them?
I don't write lyrics.
Okay.
I'm not. I don't get very far every time I try.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I've decided that my skills lie elsewhere,
Right.
and I love the collaboration part. It To me, if I made it all by myself, I wouldn't listen to it. It would be
Hmm.
boring.
Right.
But having other people add their parts makes it way more interesting.
That's cool.
Um, and yeah, so
Yeah.
I
What
think
do
I
you
will always do that.
what do you send them, Peter? Like, what do they get from you? And you're like, yeah, I could really use a this or that, or like, what does that email look like? Like, here's like the bare bones, or here's the baseline, and I'm looking for you to do like, what does that correspondence look like, and how do you go about that process of, all right, I'll put a line down, and then they send it to you, and then like, what's that whole process like of this long distance collaboration?
So I've found that uh, I can't just send people the chord changes. Like like the first thing that inspires me does not inspire other people. A lot of times it's
Okay.
just they don't hear what I'm hearing. Um,
Right.
so I have to pretty much get a fairly complete track together.
Hmm.
It has to have the changes, and it has to have uh, just enough content to keep people interested, to make them excited, and to actually hear a bit of the direction, I suppose. And yeah, because I mean, I've sent a track for this last record. I sent something to Robert from Black Rebel, and he didn't hear anything, and because of that, that track didn't end up on this current record, but it's going to be the best song on the next record. I promise you. Unless I come up with something better, which has happened, yeah, it's funny. It's like, and it's a lot of times I don't want to go with the obvious choice when it comes to picking somebody to sing. It's like if I in the case of having a slow dive kind of inspired song, I'm not going to ask Rachel to do that. I find, I don't know, that might not make a whole lot of sense, but for some reason I don't go the easy route.
Right. Well, you want it to sound like what it is, not slow. Like you don't want it to be too close to what she already has done. Like to let her step out of her zone a bit. And
I mean, everybody's inspired by stuff and everybody borrows, but I'm very conscious about not wanting to sound particularly like anything. But fine with people hearing the influences.
Yeah. And do you feel that you've done that you've created? I mean, just talking about the last record, I felt like the end of the, it felt like the end of the world. Does that, I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anything like it.
I don't know. I mean, I hear my influences in there, but it doesn't sound like any one thing in particular. And a lot of it is when I get down to the mixing stage. I've been working with my friend Jeremy Shearer, and he is heavily influenced by like hip hop, and so his approach to what I do is very different. And I'm so happy to let him just do his thing, that it is a whole extra level of production that happens. And he will sometimes take like in the case of Rachel's song Tic Tac, essentially all my guitars are not there anymore, and the drum tracks that I recorded are not there either. There's a little bit of the electronic drums I did, but just the way he stripped it down and turned it into what it is makes it, I think, a much superior song, and definitely way more interesting to me because it's choices I wouldn't have made. I rarely ask him to undo stuff that he's done. It's always like, oh, that's really interesting.
It's cool to see it through somebody else's lens, eh? Than yours. Just to see the difference of, it's amazing how dramatic a song can change too, from what you had in your intent in your brain to after they kind of mixed it and messed around with it a bit.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Pete, I want to just thank you first off as we kind of bring this to a close. Really cool. I mean, we've kind of ping pong between two of your projects, but what else is coming down the pipe in 2024 for you? Like, what's going down? I know you're busy as hell. Like, what's?
Well, I mean, Dandies are out touring a lot, so it's traveling around playing shows, organizing remixes and some reinterpretations of some of the songs. I'm currently Sun Adams, the band I play bass for and produce, is mixing a record. We released a 7-inch already called Ceiling Tiles. Working with Jags Cooner on that. He mixed the Dandies record as well. And so we've got another 7-inch coming out on Little Cloud, and a full length probably this year. I have a project that I do with Chris Ollie, in the UK. His band was 6x7. Our project is called The Walls of Dada. We do about if everything goes well, we do a show a year, which is always, everything is just made up on the spot. And we hope to have another record out this year as well. So,
wow,
yeah,
busy. You're a busy guy.
yeah, and I don't know. I did some music for a video game last year, and so now I've kind of got that bug, and I'm dying to do the soundtrack for a film of some sort. I have the skills now.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have a studio too, right? Is your studio right in your house? It's in your basement?
Yeah. I'm actually at the Dandy studio right now.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you don't need a huge amount of space anymore to have an amazing studio. So
yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, all the best. I mean, I hope you find a little bit of time for rest in there at certain intervals, because it's you got a heavy schedule. I'm sure you're often busy, so I really appreciate that you were able to carve a little bit of time out to talk.
Oh yeah,
I love that
Thank
your
you.
stories are put down on tape now as well, so that we can remember some of these as we age.
Cool. Yeah.
So thanks so much,
Cool.
Pete. Check it out, guys. He's got some records out. The Dandies, Pete International Airport came out last year. Amazing record. Check it out. And if you can catch a show, do it. So
yes,
thanks, Pete, and all the best, man.
All right. Thank you.